I never signed up to live next to a luxury lakeside resort. But then it sprang up like mushrooms after the rain, complete with hotels, kayaks, fur-clad tourists, and an HOA that thought it was the FBI. And let's not forget the HOA boss, Karen. She acted like God had personally appointed her to manage this entire land, the lake, and even my rundown red shed. But here's the part Karen forgot to read carefully in the HOA bylaws. Owning the lake doesn't mean you control the flow. And yes, their fancy lake, the one they call Silver Pines Lakeside Paradise, it only exists thanks to the little creek that runs from my land. And I hold the water valve. One twist and Karen's paradise turns into a mud-smelling swamp. My name is Hank, a 60-year-old old-timer living in the southern countryside where the rooster crows before sunrise and the ice cream truck never bothers to come by. My family has lived on this land for over a century. 300 acres of open pasture, old oak trees, and a red barn my grandfather built with his bare hands and a good old American dream. Running through my land is a little creek, cool all year round, like nature. Placed it there just to green the fields and lull the cows to sleep in the afternoon. Then, 15 years ago, the rich folks built an artificial lake right next to my land. They named it something fancy. Silver Pines Lake sounds more like a luxury perfume than a body of water. They built a resort, formed an HOA, and started acting like royalty. But they forgot one thing. That lake, it survives because of my creek. And that creek, I still hold full legal control over it, signed by my grandfather, stamped and sealed. But Karen either didn't know or chose not to care. It all started with a piece of paper. No, not a bill. A warning letter from the HOA, written in syrupy, sweet language that read more like a death sentence. The content? Dear Mr. Hank, your red barn is a visual disturbance for guests at the resort. It appears old, unsafe, and diminishes the natural experience. Excuse me? That barn was built by my grandfather with real wood, not that decorative lumber they sell at IKEA. It stood through 3 storms, and one time a delivery truck backed into it by mistake. I shoved the letter into the drawer right next to my allergy pills and a bunch of dried out pens. But 2 weeks later, I came back from the grocery store and walked into a scene straight out of a silent action movie. A bulldozer parked square in my field. Half the barn reduced to a pile of splinters. 4 workers in reflective vests, hard hats stamped with HOA, tapping on iPads like they were doing God's work. I asked them, "Who gave you permission to do this?" One guy didn't even bother to look up and replied, "Karen. She said this place was a safety hazard." Karen, that name again, and this time she brought a bulldozer. After calling the police, getting a head shake, and then receiving a letter from the HOA's lawyer threatening to sue me for damaging the resort's image, I sat down, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and did the one thing Karen never thought I was capable of. I opened the old land records, and bingo, right there, buried among yellowed papers, was the original easement agreement my grandfather signed with the first developers over 50 years ago. Clause 3, line 12. The original landowner retains full control of the water source and may shut off flow if property is infringed upon. To put it simply, Kuj, I have the right to shut off the water. Karen has no right to demolish my barn. And then I remembered that rusty little valve inside the shed at the far end of the field. Yep, still works like a charm. And me? I'm pretty darn good at turning valves. That morning, I put on my ball cap, slipped into my rubber boots, and walked to the far end of my land, where the little creek flowed straight into Silver Pine's $1 million resort lake. There was a rusty old shed there. Inside, a water valve the size of a submarine steering wheel, covered in dust and cobwebs, but solid as ever. I took a deep breath and turned it. And you know what? No sirens blared. No guards came running. No Karen copter descended from the skies. Just one thing. The creek went silent. 3 days later, their lake dropped nearly 2 feet. The fancy boat dock, bone dry. Yachts, tilted like beached fish. The lakeside BBQ area now had a lovely view of mud flats and duck tracks. And then Karen called. She called. She texted. She emailed with red exclamation marks. "Mr. Hank, this is a misunderstanding. We should sit down and talk." Oh, now she wants to talk? When she brought in a bulldozer to crush my barn, she talked with steel chains. All I did was turn a valve, and their lakefront paradise turned into a reservoir of regret. Karen offered a deal. She said, "Mr. Hank, we're willing to rebuild your barn if you open the valve." Oh, how sweet. But I'm not the kind of man who forgets everything just because someone says sorry after bulldozing my home. So I sent her a list. Not a long one, just an expensive one. A brand new barn, same design my grandpa built, with materials I choose and workers I hire. Compensation for my tractor, hay, and 2 weeks of lost farm work. And from now on, if they want that $1 million lake to stay full, the easement fee goes up 10 times. Paid quarterly. Late? The valve turns off. Of course, they threatened to sue. My lawyer gave a soft chuckle and pointed to clause 3. Right to shut off water flow in case of property infringement. 2 days later, Karen signed the papers. A week later, the new barn was up bright red and more glorious than ever. Oh, and they also built a 6-foot privacy fence to block the resort's view of my land. So I painted the new barn a blazing red just to make sure their guests could still see it, through every little gap. Now, every evening, I sit on my porch, sipping iced tea, and look out over that $1 million artificial lake. And I think, sure, Karen owns the lake, but I own the switch. They've got a resort, lawyers, and an HOA rule book, thick as a textbook. Me? I've got a valve and a damn good memory. So here's my advice to anyone messing with someone's land, legacy, or memories. Before you play the power game, make sure you know who controls the water. If you think Karen earned her lesson, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, number Team Valve, and subscribe for more stories where HOAs get served legally and properly. I'm Hank, keeper of the valve, and I won't hesitate to turn it again if I have to.